My name is Erik Van Horn. I bought my first franchise in my 20s, and since then, I've owned 6 brands with 25 stores in 8 states. I've also helped 1,000 people find the right franchise for them. People like us who are not cut out for the 9-to-5 and like to work smarter, not harder. How do we find the right franchise, buy it, grow it, sell it, and how do we do it in a way to own the business without it owning us? Those are the questions, and I'm on a mission to give you the answers. Welcome to Franchise Secrets.
Welcome to the Franchise Secrets podcast with your host, Erik Van Horn, and today's guest is Tim Jolicoeur. He's a franchisee with Nutrishop and Restore Hyper Wellness and Cryotherapy. He's also a vet, and so a number of people recommended him to come on the show. Out of Boise, Idaho, welcome, Tim.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Thanks for the invite, and thank you for Jamie for calling me out. I think she was the first one. So.
I think so. And then there were several after that. So that was in the Franchise Secrets Facebook group. And by the way, if you're not in the Franchise Secrets Facebook group, go to franchisesecretsgroup.com and you'll be in a great community of franchisees, franchisors, and different people that are interested in it. But Tim, why don't we go back to the beginning? One of the reasons I was looking for some people who were veterans and in franchising, because one of the things that we're looking at with Mighty Dog Roofing, they're veterans that are looking at that concept. And I thought, you know what? I just want to start interviewing some vets. So first of all, thank you for your service. And why don't you go ahead and let us know, like, what was life like going into the military, coming out of the military, and then how did you get into franchising?
Sure. Going into the military, we'll start with that one. Going into the military was great. I needed it. I needed discipline in my life. I was going down the wrong road, and it was good to be able to go somewhere to learn some discipline and have some structure. It was some of the best times of my life. It really was. I got to experience new places. I never had to go into a combat role, even though I was in the Marine Corps infantry. But I never had to actually go across seas, serve over in the desert there. But I was there in Korea. I was in Japan, Okinawa. We were there on the east side in case China or North Korea specifically at that time acted up. But it was some of the best times. The camaraderie, the brotherhood, the work ethic, the just pushing your body to the limits. It was exciting. I ended up getting out of the military. I think that's question number 2. The reason why is I ended up with a lot of pain from being in the military. I was in the Marine Corps infantry, and then we decided to push it, and I was Marine Corps infantry super squad competition, and we made it through the whole competition, placed second in the division, so best of the best military Marine Corps infantrymen. But unfortunately, I ended up with pain that lasted for the past 20 years essentially.
Took a toll. It didn't come without. It took a toll. It didn't come without consequences.
It did, but it taught you a lot too, right? It taught you that your body can't go as far as your mind can push it. Your mind can push it a lot further. So it was definitely a lesson learned the hard way that absolutely changed my life and forced me to pivot to less active roles. But that's how I eventually got into, I guess, franchising. I started off when I got out. I went through a dark time. I was telling you this before, but, drinking, fighting, I wasn't happy. I went from, super athlete in the Marine Corps to absolutely nothing. So that's pretty hard when you first get out. And then after that, I went into restaurant, quickly moved up from, server, bartender to assistant manager. I realized the pay and the lifestyle wasn't what I wanted. I had done sales previously before that and had done flooring previously before that, opened a flooring business with my brother about 6 months before the housing collapse in Colorado, which Colorado got hurt pretty hard.
Great timing.
Yeah. So that was my first business failure. But again, it taught me a lot of lessons. And it was fun. It really was a lot of hard work and a lot of lessons, but it was really fun. And went back into sales because of the economy and everything else. I found that was where my natural talent was, and ended up getting out of shape and eventually lost 90 pounds. My wife and I together lost about 90 pounds, trying to get healthy again. And we ended up moving to Idaho, and we wanted to open up a concept or open up a business that we could help others with. And with our past experiences of being super healthy to being completely unhealthy, to coming back to being healthy, we wanted to help others do that. And so we landed on a nutrition store and opened that up in Boise back in 2014.
So that's Nutrishop. So that was back in 2014, first one in 2014. How many do you own now?
So we own 3 with 1 more on the way.
And what was it like opening up those 3? I have my own experience opening up multiple units. Like, tell me, like, just kind of like what unit 1 was like versus 2 versus 3.
1 unit is much easier than 2 units. There's no doubt. And Nutrishop wasn't a franchise at the time. They were a license. So there wasn't a whole lot of structure into how do you move from 1 to 2 to 3 and why it's important to move to 3 after 2 to help, the growth and to help with the hiring and everything else. But so I opened up 1 within a year. We had paid off. We took out an SBA loan for about $70,000 and paid it off within, I think, 6 months or 7 months or something. They actually weren't happy with me. And then after that, I started working on my second one. We opened up the second one within I think a year and a half of opening our first one, if I'm correct. And that one was fantastic. It went gangbusters. $66,000 in sales first month. Very happy. And the Boise one, it opened up mildly. Our first month was 27,000, but because we didn't have any payroll, we remained in the black, which was nice. But as we grew the Boise one, and then as we grew the Meridian one, we also eventually opened up the Nampa, I think 3 years after.
And how did that do? So 20 something, 60 something, how did the third one do compared?
I want to say, and I don't have the numbers correct, it's between 27 and 32.
Okay, so that second one was significantly better.
Correct. And the reason why is we had developed a name in the community. We've helped a lot of people lose, in this community, we've helped the community lose over 50,000 pounds of body fat and gain 15,000 pounds of muscle mass now. But the word had gotten out, right? We were in Boise, which is the Far East city. And then we spread it over to Meridian, and Meridian, a little bit more affluency, a little bit more suburbs. And they just took to it and they rushed to it. And also, I had to have my pants on fire, to be honest with you, because, my SBA loan on the second one, I did take one out, but it didn't get approved till like 5 weeks after I opened. Man. I did everything in cash and actually in debt. I was about 50 grand in debt when I opened that second one. So I had to get myself out of it, and the bank wasn't coming through. So at the end of the 5 weeks, when they finally approved it, I told them I don't need it and sent them on their way.
So with that, a lot of people, they're back up against the wall. They don't respond like that. So is that military training? Is that just school of hard knocks? Like, or just like the mental toughness? Like, what was it that looking back, you were like, we just got to make it work. Something didn't happen like you wanted to. You wanted to have that loan, I'm sure, as you were opening up, but it didn't happen. So it's like, what's different about you than the guy that failed? Like, what is it?
I don't know that I can speak to what's different about me. One thing that everybody comments on is my assertiveness and drive. I don't like failure. And I use fear of failure as a very good motivator, not just a motivator in business, but in personal life as well. I've got a lot of growing to do. And so I'm constantly trying to read books, trying to grow, because I don't want to fail. That's the big thing. And if you're not improving, you're failing. You're going forwards or backwards. And that's really it. So that's always been my mindset. I would definitely say my life is a hard knocks type life, not horrible or anything, but definitely grew up on the other side of the railroad tracks. But I would say it's a little bit of that. It's a little bit of, the military for sure, the Marine Corps. But yeah, I think anybody, if you're looking at failure in the face, you can come back from that if you just have the right mindset in place.
Yeah, mindset's amazing. I don't get too much into that, but like there's absolute truth to having the right mindset. When you have to have the right mindset when you're going into those situations.
It's everything.
So,
yeah.
So when you have 3, and then you also started Restore Hyper Wellness, and what else is it? Tell me about Restore. How did you get into that?
So Restore is probably one of the most beautiful concepts I've seen in a while. And I've been to a lot of discovery days trying to find the next concept because I wanted to diversify. And I left a lot of discovery days, not happy, I guess. Well, I would say just not a fit. With Restore Hyper Wellness, we do IV drip therapy with registered nurses. We do cryotherapy. We do red light therapy. We do compression. We do stretch. We do everything. And what's nice is we're taking all these services that a lot of these athletes do and a lot of these professionals and celebrities do, and we're democratizing it and making it affordable for everybody. So it's a huge win-win, and it's just the natural state of capitalism, right? When something comes out, it's very expensive. The first people jump on board that have the money, and as it keeps on going, it starts to become more and more for the masses. And that's part of their mission statement. And being that I had so much pain and dealt with so much pain at such a young age, it really appealed to me. And I was actually looking at opening the concept before I ran into Restore. I was actually going to do cryotherapy, stretch, but I was going to do massage, and I was going to do float tank. And there was a few other things I was going to do. And I stumbled into I didn't stumble. I walked into a Restore one day down in Utah, and I fell in love with it. And I realized I want to do this. So I started researching, how am I going to get this medical stuff on board? How am I going to have nurses? And that's just way too much. This is the perfect idea for a franchise, because you got to have there's different medical laws based upon state. They already had everything worked out. There was no way. If I was going to attempt this concept, I was going to misspend $1 million. So it was a no-brainer for me to sign on and open one up in this area.
That's a good point, because it's like you're always looking for ROI on what you spend. You spend not on the franchise fee, on royalties. You're always looking for a return on that investment. But also, I like saving money too. Like you said, it saved you a ton of money by them having different things figured out. And I don't hear a lot of people talk about that, but I've seen it in my life as a franchisee where I've saved hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I love it when all of a sudden I realize that I saved hundreds of thousands of dollars, and I'm like, I'm in the money now. And this is great.
Well, I think what a lot of people don't see is that a lot of times they go into a franchise system, right? And the franchise system is done. It's, 70, 80, 90% of the way there. There's no mistakes for them to make. With Nutrishop, there are still a lot of mistakes. And I was out here on an island out in Boise, Idaho. So I got to make, I don't know, $50,000 to $150,000 worth of mistakes in terms of what software to use, what vendors to use, who to hire, all these different things. Whereas with Restore, it's a lot more structured. They're still a young franchise. They're about 5 years now, I think 3 years of which they've been franchising. But they're a lot more structured, and it's getting better and better every day. So, and that's what I wanted to watch, because this isn't my end game. My end game is to create my own concept eventually. But I wanted to watch how their growth happened, because when I first went out there, they had an office about this size, and that was it. Now they've got, I don't know what it is, like 10,000 square foot office with all these employees, and that's just in 2 years. So yes, the amount that you save is, most people won't even recognize it if you're signed up with a good concept.
Right one.
All the mistakes you won't be making.
What so then you started out with a lower cost franchise, and now Restore is quite a bit more expensive.
Yes.
A lot of people just want to start out with the thing that's so cool and so sexy. And I got started out in the tax business, like low end tax business. And now I'm, able to do other things that I wasn't able to when I first started. So many people just don't want to start with something that is a lower cost right away. Like, what advice are you glad you did that? And like, what are some of the things that you learned on a lower cost franchise that you now take with you on a higher cost, bigger deal?
Sure. Here's what I would say is, first of all, you got to have a passion for it. So no matter what, whether it's high cost or low cost, you got to have a passion for it. With my background, we had a passion with sports nutrition, with fitness, and with helping people. In terms of starting out smaller, start out with wherever you can. If you're new to business, definitely start out smaller. It's lower risk, higher reward. For instance, my Nutrishops have always been in the black. I've never had a month in the red. My first Nutrishop was, I think, $106,000 to open, maybe all in. So very, very inexpensive. My third one was maybe, and this is including inventory. So if you're talking non-inventory, we're talking like 60, 70 grand, right? So very, very affordable. but it makes it so that you can grow, and you can cut your teeth a little bit, and you can learn what you need to learn, so that when you do have the funds, because Vicki and I didn't have the funds, we're self-made 100%. But when you do have the funds, you can go out there and you can say, okay, I'm ready for that next concept. And for me, I mean, it was a natural progression to go with Restore Hyper Wellness, because it just fits into that segment that I'm in right now, which is supporting that boutique fitness craze and supporting the fitness area.
What are some of the things that you've loved that Restore has done as a franchisor? How have they grown as you've grown with them? What are some of the things that you look at them and like, they've done this well, and you want to take that as you become a franchisor someday, take those lessons and kind of duplicate?
I would say they've got very good leadership at the top. You can tell that they care not just about you as the franchisee running sales for them and paying them royalties. You can tell that they care about you, but also they care about their corporate employees as well. So I definitely can take some leadership cues from it. I've watched it develop in terms of communication. Their communication has had to change over time, over and over. Currently, we're still using Slack a little bit, but they're starting to transition it to something else. So watching it move from those free services and taking advantage of those free services to those services that are more comprehensive has been great. They're looking at, so right now we're using MindBody for fitness software. I'm very unhappy with it, and they're creating their own CRM tool. Like they're taking the initiative to do all the things. And what I tell all the other franchisees, right, is you just got to be patient and just hope that it keeps going in that direction. And so far, it's been fun. I just got off of a construction Zoom call. Whereas before I was going to the construction site on my first one, and I was going in there and I was, just checking on things, and I'm a little bit of a control freak, so I'll probably do it still. But what's really nice is I'm on a Zoom call, corporate's leading the Zoom call. They have a corporate representative. He's going to get pictures every week of everything going on. He's going to handle all the situations. I literally, if I wanted to, and I don't recommend this of any franchisee, but I could step aside and not even worry about the build out. They're going to get that taken care of. And that's improved a lot. Before, I'd say they took care of about 60%, 70%. And now it looks like it's 90 to 100%. And it's impressive. So, and that's just in a year of growth too. So.
And it's interesting because a lot of franchisees that come in now, that's just, they don't know any of the early stuff. Like this is normal to them, and you've seen it, but not everything's perfect as well. So I just like the attitude that you have as a franchisee dealing with it. Like, yeah, you don't like MindBody, they're going to be moving to something else. And how does that work? What's that communication like with, like, what advice would you have for people that want to change things with their franchisor? One thing just to complain, or you can be a part of the solution. Like, how do you become a part of the solution?
Yeah, you become a part of the solution by, instead of complaining to people that are at your level, don't reach out to other franchisees and say, hey, this isn't going good, or this isn't going good, or what do you think about this? I hate that, but I do field a lot of those calls because we're a successful franchise group within the Restore group. What I want to see is what I do is I send out an email and I start a conversation with either the top 3 people or all of the top 3 people. And I say, hey, this is what I believe. This is why I believe. This is where I think it could be. And this is, I'm a little bit of a pain in the butt. So I try to be as political and not a pain in the butt as possible. But really what I tell any franchisee is don't complain, challenge them, right? I don't want you in my franchise group if you're not going to challenge the leadership. And if the leadership doesn't want to be challenged, that's not somebody I can follow. That's not somebody I want to be at the top of the leadership group. And that's why I actually left one after becoming an area manager for another concept that I won't mention. After Discovery Day, I bought a whole 2-state region, and I walked out because they could not be challenged. So they refunded me all my money back. But challenge everybody that you can within the group. Try and do it as respectfully as possible, because nobody really likes to be challenged, but they should respect it and want it. And so far, Restore has been really, really good and respectful about it. I challenge what I call the 2 Davids and Jim all the time. So.
What do you mean? But so you challenge, but do you, like, there's one thing to challenge, but then do you offer solutions with that? You're challenging ways of doing things and different things. Do you have a solution with it, or like just challenging?
Sure. No, you never want to challenge without a solution. And that's what I tell my employees, right? Is if you're going to have a situation that you're not sure how to handle, bring it up to me, and tell me how you'd want to handle it. If you have something you want to change, I'm open to it. I tell my employees when I hire them, I sit down with all my employees still. I still sit down with all of them. And I say, hey, this is our employee manual. I go through all the culture setting things. And I say, hey, this manual wasn't built by me. This was built by everybody that's been here before you. So if you have a better way of doing something or a way of doing that, let me know. But also, next line down or next paragraph down, it's complaints will not be tolerated. If you're complaining down the chain of command or equal to, that's a complaint. But if you're sending it up, that's a request or that's a challenge.
Shifting gears a little bit, do you have crossover between the two companies, Restore and Nutrishop? Is there a crossover with employees?
Not with employees too much. My leadership team is crossed over a little bit, and I'm going to try and run it that way. Well,
tell us about that leadership team. What's the structure look like? How have you grown into the team that you have today?
Sure. It's been hard. It's been difficult, to be honest with you.
It hasn't been super easy.
No, nothing's easy. If people sign up for a franchise thinking it's easy, they're wrong. It hasn't been easy, right? I got 3 stores. I'm about to open a 4th Nutrishop. I've got 1 Restore, about to open a 2nd one, and I've got 7 to 10 to open in the next 5 to 7 years. So I've got to start thinking about that. What does that look like now? What does it look like later? And at what steps? So I've kind of mapped it out. I did have a gentleman leave me. He had a passion for gym and fitness and still does, but he has a bigger passion for coding. And he found that out over the past 2 years. So he was my executive leadership team. And he's now leaving me and he's moving up, and I'm happy and we're excited. And he's staying on for 3 months as a consultant to help me train up these 2 young ladies that have been working for me. So I have 1 young lady now, and this might be a little bit early with the amount of stores I have, but I have a young lady now that's going to handle sales, marketing, and HR, and another young lady that's handling sales and operations, essentially operations, reporting, analytics. And both of their strengths go towards that. So now we've got a leadership team again, and we're going to grow that. Eventually I'm going to pull HR into its own role. Eventually I'm going to pull, sales away from marketing and things like that. But for now, that's the way I see it. It's probably for the next 1 to 2 years. It's going to be us and maybe some assistants at some point. And we're going to do that until we need to add that HR person, which will probably be at somewhere around 50 to 100 employees.
That'll be a lot. So how many employees do you have working for you right now?
Right now I have about 20, I want to say 29 employees.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then you're opening up 1 more Nutrishop, and then you are really going all in with Restore.
Well, I might open up more Nutrishops as I open up Restores, because you asked me about the employee, but there's actually really good synergy between Nutrishop and Restore. If you built yourself as a brand, if you built the company as a change maker in the community and someone that cares about the community, it just spills right over. And that's why we had the #1 opening at that time of any Restore by a lot, is the community received us. So as I open up Restores, I do have a plan to open up Nutrishops alongside of them, right next to them possibly, just so that I can keep that synergy going so that they can feed each other.
Let's go back to military and franchising. So what do you see as people that are leaving the military right now? Like, what advice would you have for them? The things that they don't really know what they want to do next, right? So, and it could be different ages, but I know you did it when you were younger, and they want, what advice would you have for them?
It depends, right? If they're younger, I would say go out and get a job in whatever your passion is and read as many books as you can and find out where your life's trajectory is, right? Find out what your purpose is and go chase after it. If they're older, I would say the same thing, but they're at a different level. They still need to read the books. They still need to do everything that we need to do as a younger person, but they might have more ability to reach out and grab a franchise. And if they do, and if they feel like it matches their passions and their talents, go for it. Just don't expect to go from working 70 hours a week in the military to working 30 hours a week for a franchise. It doesn't work that way usually, unless you have an investor group with you and they're comfortable with you doing that. For the most part, it's going to be, 60 to 90. I mean, I was doing 70 to 90 hour work weeks. There was a point where I did 3 months straight where I was in store for 3 months with not a day off. Sometimes things happen. But it's rare for it to be that bad. But you're doing 2 hours worth of work before when you wake up, and you're doing 2 hours worth of work when you get home. And if it's a 10-hour day, that's a 14-hour day.
Was that kind of that expectation set when you were first doing that? And were other people working the same amount of hours with the same level of success?
I would say yes. They have a culture over there with my first concept of just grind. The grind is the success. And that's not the case. And that's what I'm kind of fighting over there, is the grind is required. It creates structure. It builds discipline. It cuts your teeth. It's kind of what you need to go through to have a respect for where you're going. But where you should be going is not the grind. Where you should be going is, on some acres in South Dakota in the Black Hills over there. So that's my goal, is to get to that point. But yes, in the beginning and even now, the grind is the word over there. And that's not what I'm about. I'm about trying to create systems so that we can scale this and make it easier as well.
Yeah, it's because trying to think, because I haven't heard a lot of the franchises that I've been around, they don't talk about the grind. They probably need to talk about it more, and it sounds like they talk about it a lot, but yes. I can see that as somebody goes from licensing into franchising. If you set the expectation, you have to grind. That means you're working, you have to go figure it out versus like rely on us for systems. But you get to the point where the franchisor has really good processes and systems. And then you as a franchisee have some redundancy built in your team, and you've got a team built. That's when you can start to pull away. So where are you in that right now? Are you working 40 hours a week? Are you working 60 or 10?
Are we talking in my store, or are we talking just working in terms of on my business?
On my
business. On my business, I'm still probably somewhere between 40 to 60 hours. Some weeks I'm down to 30. But for the most part, I'm 40 to 60 hours. But I'm a workaholic. I don't believe in retirement. I believe in semi-retirement, maybe.
Maybe.
But that's me, right? My happiness is pulled from being able to work and being able to help and to be able to help improve things. And not everybody is that way. So everybody's got to find their happiness level. I can work a 40-hour work week and feel like I'm on vacation. So it's rare, but it's nice.
So what do you spend your time on every week? So you've got an incredible work ethic and you enjoy that. What do you spend your time on?
It's shifting now, right? It used to be where I'm working on the business all the time as I have a leadership team, and as I'm, entrusting my leadership team, and as I have, the employee retention and the key leadership spots and things like that. I'm shifting more to trying to work on myself and my leadership abilities, my empathy and other things like that, reading books, because that's where it grows, right? In the beginning, you can be successful, by yourself, or for me, it was with my wife. My wife and I were working right next door, right with each other the whole time, and still are somehow, right? But no, we're happy. But after that, it changes. As you grow, you have to force yourself to delegate. You have to learn to invest in people. And now the success of the company isn't on you. The success of the company is on everybody else. It's on creating leaders within the team that can go off and do the work that you would be doing. So, and then you're coaching them. And that's where I'm at now. I'm trying to improve myself right now.
Is that an easy transition, or is that kind of a difficult transition? Because I know when I've been in the grind working like crazy, and then all of a sudden to kind of working on the business and working on myself, sometimes it didn't feel like work and I felt guilty at times.
I don't think so, but I'm harsh on myself. I see how much improvement I can make, right? So I don't think that it was a hard transition. I think my hardest transition was maybe a year ago, was when I just had the 3 Nutrishops and Restore wasn't quite open. Is okay, I got to step away, but there's still so much I can do. Now with Restore and 2 different concepts and multiple locations, now it's like, okay, now I had to work on my business for the past year or so. And I jumped in, we did a transformation challenge at Nutrishop, and I jumped in for 10 days straight almost. And we killed it, right? Helping lots of people and helping the business. So I went in and I did that. I had no issue doing that. But for the most part now, I've transitioned out of that, and you have to work on yourself. You know, they're looking, your team is looking to you to be a leader, and they've got to trust you, right? And they got to believe in you that you have the ability, and C, they need to know that you're not going to, blow smoke. You got to be honest with them. So that's where I'm at, is trying to just grow and stay ahead of them and help them grow as well right now.
And then you're in the thick of it, getting more restores. It's a large investment, and you're still building the team out on that. Like, how many are you, like, what's the 1, 2, and 3 year trajectory on Restore? How many are you going to be opening it up?
So this year we're going to open up 1. I'm hoping to open up 2. I've got a line on a location, but with the COVID permitting delays, it might be a little bit harder. So I'm hoping to open up 2 by the end of this year. It might be just 1. So, and then next year, no matter what, it's going to be 2 to 3, in my opinion. I want to try and get these open as quickly as possible. They're very successful. They make a change in the community when they open. And they are, they're really fun. They really are really fun concepts to manage, to learn. It's really, really a neat little concept.
So let's talk about that concept a little bit, just because a lot of people might not know, like, the IVs and different things like that. So out of the suite of services that you guys offer, what are some of them that you just like, this is some of the best, right? This people get so much impact or results from this thing or that thing. What would that be?
So it wouldn't be one thing, right? We got to interview our customers to find the ones that match them. Somebody with back pain, if their back pain is due to sitting all the time, stretch therapy and cryotherapy is going to really work out fantastically well. If it's due to a surgery, it's going to be cryotherapy and hyperbaric oxygen therapy, so we can reduce inflammation and increase that recovery time, or decrease it, I should say. And then if that back injury is, something to do with the spine itself, we can't do stretch, so it's strictly going to be cryotherapy, but HBOT might be of no use to them. So then an IV would be extreme. IVs are good for everything, but so it really depends. Like, we've got a lot of really neat therapies, and what's neat is everybody's therapies are going to be different, and it's going to be based upon what they're dealing with. We deal with a ton of people with, like, autoimmune diseases, Lyme disease, rheumatoid arthritis, fibromyalgia, and we're significantly impacting their lives where we're improving their quality of life so they can go out and do the things they want to do. We're dealing with a lot of military veterans, a lot of people. A lot of times when people go in for surgery, they come into us for the hyperbaric chamber, and they buy, 10, 20 pack of that, and they just do that back to back.
So what is that? For somebody that doesn't know what that is, what is a hyperbaric chamber?
Sure. Hyperbaric chamber is the chamber that a lot of these athletes use. So back in the old days, the ACL injury and surgery used to take people, first of all, 20 years ago, it would put you out of business altogether. You want to be able to play anymore. 10, 15 years ago, it started changing from 1 year times to, now I think people are doing it in 6 months. And a lot of it has to do with hyperbaric. It's oxygen therapy. So what it is right now you and I are sitting in around 22% oxygen. The chamber is 95 to 100% oxygen at a 30% greater atmospheric pressure. So it's actually pressurizing the oxygen inside the body. We are oxygen beings. We genetically or just by design, we are oxygen beings. So high pressurized, high efficiency oxygen into the body is going to speed up your recovery significantly.
How do you just in your community relate to other business owners and get better yourself? Like, just think about, like, advice that you would have for someone that would come to you and say, I'm a franchisee in my local community and I'm trying to level up my game. How have you leveled up your game as an entrepreneur with your local network? I mean, we do it at the franchise, the Franchise Tribe Mastermind. We have, 80 plus franchisees that are in that. Some of them have gotten to know each other locally, but, I'm all about, like, having franchisees get better, level up their game. And from a local standpoint, how have you done that?
So, my thought process on this is it's got to be a win-win for everybody, right? So everybody's in business, and we have a lot of really good contacts within the fitness industry out here that we've built relationships with, and they're sincere relationships. They're not relationships just built on business. And the most important thing is just listen to them and offer them things. There's a lot of collaborative marketing that you can do. If you have another business that's synergistic. I've had coffee with Brandy, I think twice, Jamie a few times, and I stop by their businesses from time to time and say hello. My real estate agent, my commercial real estate agent is the owner of Cycle Bar, right? So, I know he's in my industry. He knows real estate. He knows our industry. So it helps me out there. And then we do collaborative marketing together. So it's all about reaching out. You don't have to be alone when you're a franchise. And if your franchisor is not good, you don't have to be alone. Just start looking inward and start looking at the community. And you'll find it. The relationships develop naturally. Don't force it. But one story I could tell you is when I first opened my first Nutrishop, I was turned down. So I was going around to the gyms and I was stopping by every gym and introducing myself for 6 months before we opened. But I got turned down by one gym. I won't name it, but got turned down by him for, probably about 6 months. I would do monthly stop bys, give them free products, stuff like that. And then finally they let us in. My wife ended up selling a ton of supplements and they kicked us out again so they could sell supplements. And then they couldn't sell supplements. So they brought us back in. And we brought real value. We hosted transformation challenges for them front to back. We funded, some different things for them. Like we helped them raise money for their business as well. And it worked out really well. And I've gone to lunch with the owner of that gym Concept multiple times now. And so it's been really, really good. But what my point to that is there's another gym that took me 2 years to get into is there's never a such thing as a no when you're trying to build relationships and get to know people. It just means they're not ready yet. That means that there's either more that you have to do or they just have to be in the right place for it. And you can't give up and you can't get disheartened by it.
And you mentioned like offer real value. Like you don't go into it, what can I get out of this? And so many people do that. You see, and it's the culture online. Everyone's like trying to pitch something, trying to do something. But if you go in and offer real value, and I love it. When I had a phone call the other day with somebody that was at a mastermind that I was at, he wanted to have a phone call with me, and I actually wanted to have a phone call with him too. And so we learned about each other, and he said, how can I help you, Erik? And I have people that are more successful than me and less successful than me say the same thing. And I try to do that with people as well. How can I help you? What can I do to help you in your business this year or help you personally this year? And sometimes, I'm taken back by that. I don't know how they can help me. And I'm just honest. I don't know how, but then I always try to think about that too, because they want to help and I want to help. Like, how can I really help this person? And if you just do that in your local area with other businesses, I mean, it's amazing. It's collaboration and real relationships will develop out of that. Anything else? Like what else, what advice would you have for somebody that is in one franchise right now and they're thinking about a second brand?
Do your research. First off.
Oh yeah, because you've been to a bunch of discovery days. So this is a great, you have all kinds of answers for this one.
Yes. Yeah. Do your research, ask hard questions. First do your research, land on 3 to 5 or 6 different concepts that match what you're looking for. Make sure you still have a passion for it. Or make sure you can tie in a passion to it, maybe through a charity or something along those lines. That we can tie in purpose and charity into it, because that's always important. And then besides that, ask the hard questions. With the concept, I asked a lot of hard questions. And one of them, they still wanted me and it just wasn't the right concept. Another one, I asked all the right questions. Well, they loaded me up with a few misnomers, and by law, I'm not allowed to mention their name. But they loaded me up with a few.
Because you got your money back. Because you got your money back.
I did get it back, other than some lawyer fees. But they loaded me up with lies, essentially, to be honest with you, and over promises. So then I signed up, and then I was told I would get all these things, and I didn't get the information I wanted. And all I wanted was information to some of my challenging questions. And ultimately they didn't. And so we politely exited ways. So do your research, ask hard questions. And
what are some hard questions? Like, what are the hard questions that you ask, or topics that you ask?
Okay.
That you can legally say.
If you go into one of their locations, ask them what the sales are. What are your total sales? What are the sales of this location? Why is it on this corner? Why did you do it this way? Why is the manager not cleaning the toilet? The toilet is a mess. I'll go down to the fine minutia to find out, what's really going on here. If this is supposed to be your touring location and there's not that many people in it, why? Don't have a confirmation bias situation where you just get excited and you want to look for the things that confirm your decision. Look for the reasons that actually work against what your prior decision was, because that's what's really going to help you. So ask them what their numbers, what made them get into it? What's their fallback plan if the economy crashes? There's so many questions out there that you could literally ask. Hey, if COVID happens again, what's your plan? And how is it going to affect your business? And how are you going to help out franchisees? If China takes over the world, how are you going to help franchisees? There's just so much. There's just so much out there that you could ask hard questions. And if they're a previous franchisee, they should have some hard questions to ask that I think could work out really well for them.
A lot of your questions were not yes or no questions. They were questions that uncover if this, why that, and those are good questions. And you start asking questions like that to franchisees, and then you, like you said, you don't have confirmation bias. You start to listen to what they're actually saying to maybe have a better follow-up question to that, just to see if something doesn't add up, or just to see if this person really isn't somebody that you should listen to, because there's going to be franchisees that you listen to and franchisees that you don't listen to. So how did you end up buying a second brand after kind of being disillusioned by a bad franchisor that promised something that they couldn't deliver on, and you'd been to a number of different discovery days? Like, why did you keep going down the franchise route?
Sure. So the reason I kept going down is, once again, I wasn't actually going down that route. I was going down a completely different path. I was going to open up my own concept that was like this one. And I fell in love with what they had already done. And I looked, and I was staring at $500,000 to $3 million worth of mistakes if I wanted to scale and grow this thing, between the medical laws and everything else. So I did that. But to their credit, it was still a smaller company, and I don't know if they're still doing this. But when I flew down there, they picked us up at the airport, the CEO. When I stayed at the house, I stayed at the lead investor's house in his casita. When I wanted to show locations, the CEO flew out and looked around the locations with me and gave me his advice. I know, bandwidth and time, they can't do that right now, probably for most of their franchisees, but the fact that they wanted to, and the fact that they had the intention to and followed up on it was absolutely impressive. And then to tie into that, I obviously did a lot of, talked with other franchisees. And I wanted to make sure that sales were good, profitability was good. What was it like to staff it? A lot of the harder questions. But in terms of them, it was a really good experience. It was low key. It wasn't, I'm trying to sell you this. It was more, hey, this is who we are. This is where we're going. Do you want to come aboard? So it was impressive.
That's awesome. Well, I love that. And I think there's a lot of value in kind of what you just, what we just went through over the last 10 minutes for people that are looking right now. I want to push on something with you, because
Sure.
I'm in a way, the opposite, but I think I heard where we have common ground. You say, be passionate about the business, be passionate about the thing that you're doing. And I understand why you're passionate about both of those businesses. And I like both of those businesses. In the tax business, I wasn't passionate about the business at all. I wasn't even passionate about the customers, Sure. I had great interaction and got some, employees that are still, I know today from way back then, and I saw some, from a personal standpoint with employees, that was some of the best stuff out of the tax business. But like, what would you say to that? So I understand why you're passionate about those businesses, because I would be too, but I've been involved in businesses that I'm not passionate about the thing. Now, fitness I am, because you can see results in the customers, but in the tax business, I'm not, or in the roofing business, I'm not passionate about roofs. So like, how is it just a different philosophy on business? business, or like, how would you reconcile that? Or what would you challenge me with?
There's two. First, I'm going to challenge you after this disclaimer. So there's two different ways you can go. You can either have passion for the business type, or you can have passion for something you're doing inside the business. So I guess I'd challenge you back. And where was your passion inside that business? Was it to give the best tax services possible? Was it to build the business as efficiently as possible or maintain high employee? Where was your passion? Because if you don't have a passion somewhere, and it doesn't have to be with the category it's in, like mine's in the fitness and health, and it's super easy to be passionate about that, right? We're changing lives and it's great. But if you're not in that, you can still be passionate. I was passionate about flooring. So you can still be.
That's a good point. Like, tell me about that. I'm passionate about flooring.
So I grew up, I dropped out of high school for a while and laid flooring for a while. And then that was before I went in the Marine Corps. So I ended up getting into some sales after the Marine Corps, really had some success. And my brother called me and said, hey, let's go open a flooring business. So I was, 22, 23 years old. And I went and moved all the way up to Idaho. And my wife at the time, bless her heart, actually followed me all the way up to, Colorado. And she followed me from Florida to Colorado without a ring on her finger, right? So I had to propose. But so I went up there and I was probably working 50, 60-hour weeks, right, at a furniture store selling furniture while we were doing the build out for the store. And if I had free time, I was driving around, and if there was a hole in the ground with somebody building in it, I stopped by, I shook hands, I handed cards and asked to get on their bid list. And we ended up doing very well in the beginning before the housing collapse. And we had quite a few contracts, and we were doing the personal stuff as well. And you can be passionate about the growth of the business, but you need to tie in something, right? Some of my core values that I think are important, or the keys to happiness, is right. It's faith, it's gratitude, it's charity, and it's purpose. So you got to tie in your purpose, your passion, something along those lines. And it could just be tying the tax services into a charity or doing something along those lines. So I guess I'd pass it back to you. And where was your passion in it?
I love that, Tim. I'm passionate about building businesses. Like, I enjoy growing and building things and seeing things grow. And I'm passionate about people. Like, I remember stories of, I went to Austin earlier this year to a mastermind, and I was walking I went for like an hour, 2 hour long walk every morning, and I'm seeing all the homeless out there. And I used to hire the homeless, and I had some crazy stories with that, but I also changed some of their lives. I helped them buy their first car. And so, looking back on that, those are really fond memories. Walking the streets of Austin, 6th Street, 7th Street. I was, I remember the homeless that used to work for me. I would see them on the street at night when I'd go to dinner with my wife and I, and they would come up to us and walk alongside of us, and they protected us at times, and we protected them at times. And so I was passionate about the people, sure, building teams and building businesses. So that's what I was passionate about, and still am.
Yeah. And that's charitable too, what you're doing as well. So it ties in some definitely core things that you need for happiness.
100%. I was snooping around on some of your stuff, and I noticed that you support charities, like charities. Tell me about like one of your favorite charities and why do you support them?
So I typically do police, military, and children, right? I believe in, and I'll do stuff for just about everybody out there. If somebody comes to me, I have no issue with it. But for me, it's the people that sign up to lay their lives down for other men. There's no bigger respect I can have for that. And for children, it's because it's not their fault, right? Unfortunately, we are a product of our environment a lot of times, and we can overcome that. But not everybody can, and some environments are really bad, and those children need our help. So really, mostly we do police and military, but I'm all about doing things for children, and we've done multiple things for a lot of different children in the area as well. So
I love that. I absolutely love that. Well, man, thanks again for your service. Thanks for coming on the show. Any last bits of wisdom, books that you want to recommend, things that you would want to share with the audience before I let you go?
I guess I could, some books, I'm a big fan of the EOS group there in terms of organizing, because it's systems for meetings. We sit there and create systems all the time for our business, but we never think about creating systems for the actual meetings, and that gives you systems and play Besides that, I read a really good book called The Culture Code. Absolutely amazing book. Really easy read. You'll bury through it in 3 days if you want to. And then The Challenge Culture by the CEO of Dunkin' Donuts was really good.
That's a new one for me. The Challenge Culture.
Yep. And if you're dealing with a bunch of pessimism, these aren't business books, but The Rational Optimist. And what was that other one? Oh, and Progress. It actually lays out how far we've come as human beings on this planet, and it's not as bad as the news makes it out to be. So it's a very nice perspective book if you need a break from business books.
Well, I love that. I'm going to get The Challenge Culture. And then you mentioned EOS. There's a number of books in that series. Gino Wickman is kind of the guy behind that. Gino's actually coming on my podcast in a couple months. So, but he's the book that I would recommend people start with if you're looking at EOS is Rocket Fuel and then Traction. Rocket Fuel will kind of give you the two main kind of categories, visionary and integrator, and then Traction kind of gives you a lot of the practical. And we are running EOS at Mighty Dog Roofing, and we're going to have our franchisees run EOS as they run their team. So I love how you that was number one right away for you.
Right. I mean, it really was. It's a book I wish I would have. If there was a number one book I would have read back in the very beginning, it would have probably been Rocket Fuel, I would say. I think Challenge Culture and what's it called? The Culture Code. I think those are high up there. The Energy Bus is a good little fable. There's a lot of books, but it's all about just grabbing books, finding the most popular ones and grabbing them. I read a lot of military books that translate to a business like a
favorite military book. Or one of your favorite.
I'm going to have to say Call Sign Chaos by General Mattis. I think that would be my biggest one. But besides that, I do like Jocko Willink and the Navy SEALs guys there, and Leif Babin. They do Extreme Ownership, which is a very big book. And they also, what I like about it is they followed up with the dichotomy of leadership, I think it's called.
Yep.
And it really dives into, sometimes there's just no good decision.
Dude, that was a fantastic book. That second follow-up book, The Dichotomy of Leadership.
Yeah, it was wonderful. Yeah.
Tim, thank you for coming on.
Sure.
And I'm sure you and I need to get to know each other a little bit. So Thanks again.
Happy to. Thank you for the invite.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Franchise Secrets Podcast. Whether you're watching or listening, please make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel and to whatever channel you're listening on. If you want my help with anything from buying a franchise to franchising your business, please visit franchisesecrets.com.